How do you invest in real estate to produce an income? I mean, bottom line is there's a lot of different strategies out there, and some of them are cash flow heavy. Some of them don't even produce cash flow at all. So today here on Limitless Wealth TV, that's what I'm going to be breaking down for you and really showing you how you can maximize your income with real estate.
Okay, do you want to be the real superhero in your family's life? It's time to jump into real estate for what? Income! This is what it's all about, and this is what we're going to talk about today. So, Stephen Michael Miller here, Kris Krohn, the one and only.
And we are the superheroes of real estate for income.
That's right.
Wait, Stephen, show them your Superman. Ready?
Ready? Hold on. I need to get out. Can I get out of the... Am I out of the... Is my body out of the frame? There we go. Oh, yeah. There we go. We're flying. This is real. Get out of there. All right. Real estate for income. Guys, obviously, you're in the real estate game because you want to earn money. And the reality is there's two different things. There's two really big money makers in real estate. Number one is you've got the cash flow, and number two is you've got the equity or this net worth growth. But we're going to talk about and focus on right now real estate for income. So, Kris, as we're talking about this, what do people need to be aware of if they're looking to get into real estate for income purposes?
Stephen, there are two strategies that we think you need to know of all the things you can do in real estate. At least when it comes to income, there's two that are going to put more income in your pocket, period. So we're going to talk about those two today. And then just by way of a little bit of a bonus at the end, what I want to do is I actually want to talk about a very simple equation that a lot of people forget about when they're only focused on income. The real secret to real income is actually something else. So we're going to talk about that at the end. So let's talk about these two strategies. The first one, lease options. Okay, now you hear us talk about it. I wrote a book. You can download it for free. You can hit the website and you're going to get that. The reason why that's such a big deal is because Stephen and I know how to get a lease option to crank $40,000 more income on a median level house than any other real estate out there, at least compared to rentals. And so it is a niche that we're super fans of because a lot of times when people think, I want cash flow, I should buy a property. And the reality is that a lease option is generally going to double, potentially triple your cash flow than just doing a straight rental.
You want to listen up here because when I first came out to work with Kris, when you called me up and we were first talking about the strategies that you were using, the number one strategy that you were talking about was this lease option idea. And when I first came out, I will say this, lease options was one of the first strategies where I began to make thousands of dollars with you, which was awesome. I loved stepping into that role and jumping in, getting my hands dirty in the lease option. But what I loved about it more was lease option opened up something that I saw. And when you first brought this to the table, I thought there's no way. But it brought the partners to the table.
Yeah.
Like this lease option, because partners are looking for increased income. They want their money to go to work for them, to do great things. And this lease option system is what started gathering in all the different partners that you first started to bring into this whole partnership. It was amazing.
The cash flow was just too high. Yeah. I mean, when I had 25 properties producing $12,000 a month for me, even outside of my partner split on everything, it's like 25 homes sounds like a lot, but relative to that amount of income, it was super, super high. And that was all because of lease option. So lease option is one strategy. We've got tons of videos. In fact, we got a 4-part video series that tells you everything you need to know about lease options. So I recommend that you check out those videos so that you can do a deeper dive on what that looks like. The second thing though that we want to talk about is if you don't want to do lease options or you don't want to be that hands-on, there's a really awesome alternative. And it's not real estate you're likely going to find in your backyard.
Yeah, this is real estate in the best markets in the nation. Now, again, we're talking about increasing your income, right? Bringing more money in. And I know for us, we live here in the Utah market, right? And here in Utah, prices are skyrocketing. We're actually right now in a seller's market. It's not necessarily the greatest time to buy a cash flowing type of property. Yeah. Yet, we want to be able to increase our income. So one of the things I think that really hit home for us was as we first started looking into expanding beyond our own borders, it was what are the markets in the nation that are going to provide the greatest income?
Exactly. And we got to talk about the macroeconomics for just a second here. Listen up. In my backyard, like Stephen said, let's just say I can do a rental, and let's say I'm going to end up making, if I buy a standard investment property, I'm going to rent it out. Let's say I'm making a 5% cash on cash return. Now, 5% is bigger than what your bank account's giving you. It's bigger than annuities can promise. So that's okay. And that doesn't take the appreciation into account and the tax benefits and all the wonderful things and juicy things that come with real estate, which is pretty hot. But if this market is 5% and there's 350 markets around the United States, in this great country, are there other markets that naturally, if you buy a standard investment property, have a higher cash on cash? And the answer is yes. So if Utah's got 5%, Stephen and I know of the markets that are out there right now that are producing 8%, 10%, 12%, some of them 14 or 15% cash on cash. So literally just the macroeconomics of 350 markets at this time frame and for the next 5 years, there's gonna be 4 or 5 markets out of 350, and those 4 or 5 markets are gonna have triple the cash flow. So if you're cash flow conscious, then you gotta go where the deals are. It's gonna lower your risk and potentially triple your returns.
And by the way, many of you have probably jumped into the real estate game thinking to yourself, I'm gonna buy a home, I'm gonna hold on to it for 30 years. The first 5 to 7 years, I might even go in the red a little bit for it, right? Maybe I won't even cash flow, maybe I'll be paying an extra 25 or 30 or 50 or $100 out of my pocket, hoping that by year 5 or 7, you might start to cash flow. If that was your plan at some point, or if you thought maybe that was a good idea, let me stop that. Like, time out, hold on. Don't do that, right? This is time to get into the very best markets in the nation, get outside of your backyard, find those markets that are gonna produce what Kris just said here, which is, I mean, that's one of those mind blows, right? You can jump into markets that are actually going to produce for you a 8, 9, 10, up to maybe 15% cash on cash return.
It's hot.
That's huge. You got to do that if you want to increase your income.
So let's go into bonus time. Just as a refresher, we've been talking about lease options and being in the best cash flow markets. If you want more details on that, make sure you hit up our website, because it's what we talk about, it's what we teach, it's what we show people how to do. And come get live with Stephen and I.
Absolutely.
We've got an event coming up. It's our Real Wealth event. It's 4 days on everything money under the sun. You're going to walk away with confidence and certainty you've never had. If you're check to check, if you're deeply in debt and you're like, dude, I have no game plan, maybe real estate's my solution, come out to this event. We'll not just talk about real estate, we'll talk about everything you need to know about money to get your life in order in a huge way and retire wealthy. So those are the things that we really want to chat with you about today. But just by way of bonus, Stephen, let's just kind of talk about one of the very obvious principles that escapes us, because there's just a lot of information out there in our info age. And I want to talk about how you ultimately get more cash flow. More cash flow will always be a function of more principal. Society, think about what they do here. Society says, save up all your money, 401k it, have a good job, and eventually maybe you retire with $300,000, right? That's high. And I'm going to put it into an annuity, and my principal is 300 grand, and the interest that is able to produce is 5%. So I'm pulling in literally like $15,000 a year, a little over $1,000 a month. It's like, well, that's a crappy retirement. It is, but it's not because the $1,000 a month sucks. It's because your principal sucks. 300,000 sounds like a lot of money, but guess what? It's not. In fact, wanting to be a millionaire, trust me, there's nothing greedy about that in today's world. Being a millionaire is going to give you a basic $50K a year. It's not a lot of money. So one of the things that you need to focus on in real estate is not just cash flow. You got to keep your eye on the bigger picture, which is how do I increase my principal? Because there are strategies in real estate that Stephen and I do. There's markets we go into where we get kick butt growth on our principal, and we also get a killer cash flow. If you can combine those two together, then your strategy is not going to be short-sighted. You can get where you want to go. 10, 20 years from now, you might look back and say, wow, the reason why I have an amazing cash flow is not just because of maybe lease options or being in the best cash flow market strategies. It's also a function, more importantly, of my principal. So all strategy can really do is increase your percent gains on your interest, but ultimately, if you don't got the principal there, then your interest is not going to be what you want it to be. And if it's not, then you're going to have to eat away the principal. And it's going to get smaller and smaller. And at that point, you got to do something depressing. You got to plan your death day because you're going to run out of money. And when you do, what are you going to do? So instead of that or going and getting a job, focus on real estate, yes, for cash flow, but make sure there's a big focus on how is my real estate increasing my principal. And that, my friends, with compound interest in the real estate game, that's a game we can show you how to crush.
Absolutely. I mean, think about this. Think about it on a home, right? When you are leveraging a property, let's say you buy a $100,000 home and you put 20% down, you still have, so you only have right now 20% in principal. And this goes to this, I just want to help you see the correlation here. You've got 20% in principal right now in that property, which is producing for you, if you're in one of these cash flow markets or doing a lease option, a pretty decent cash flow. But the longer you pay that principal down, the more you start to roll old real estate into new real estate, constantly increasing that principal, the more you own of that property, and the greater your cash flow is going to rise. It's one of those awesome principles that we often don't think about enough. So end game, end strategy, like Kris said, if you want to get more cash flow, if you want to get more income, start also to take part of your focus and focus on how do I gain more principal.
Now, friends, this is the best part. We can show you how to treasure hunt. We can show you how to go to the marketplace and get all sorts of awesome rockin' deals. Hit us up on our website, get to know us, meet us at one of our events, check us out on one of our live webinars, and get the information. Let us work together as a team to show you what we've already done for over 3,500 people. We can do that for you too. One of the best things I ever did was get my first property rocking for me and then figuring out how to turn it into 2 and 5 and 10 and 100. And friends, I'm out there doing so much real estate today because I really figured out how to maximize that income while growing that principal. If you're gonna go out there and do real estate and you wanna do it in the most profitable way possible, check out my website so we can break down the different ways that you and I can go out there and crush it in real estate together.